Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and welcome to another episode of Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentleman Crypto Network. And so, if you don't know, the basic idea is I cover weekend-related crypto stories that happen from a Friday to Sunday, pop it out 08 on Monday morning, and I filter it with, I use the filter of no price talk. So I'm not doing chart reads. I'm not telling you what's the up, what's the down. I'm not telling you what I'm messing with. That's not the weekend crypto thing. And yeah, sorry, but not sorry. For those who know, y'all know what it is. The warriors who've been down for a minute. And then for the new folks, I appreciate you taking the time to listen, to hear what I'm saying. Hopefully something clicks to you. And hopefully it gets you to ask some questions or reevaluate how you're moving through the space. Do understand though, I'm not saying this to you as a CPA. I'm not saying this to you as a lawyer. I'm not saying this to you as a financial advisor. It's just here's these stories that kind of scratch my brain and I see them as indicators, patterns, and trends on things moving through the space as it develops and expands into like an official, not official, but a standard or a stable industry. If yeah, I think that's the proper word on it. But anywho, I got a couple of stories and X amount of local stuff. Actually, a lot more local stuff than usual, at least for what caught my eye over the last 72 hours. And you know, some things good, some things kind of like head scratchy. But yeah, we'll get into that. And before I do get into this episode, let me just remind y'all, tis the tax season, y'all. And some of y'all have not crossed y'all T's and dot your I's. Now, this episode is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy, who is a CPA. He's a certified tax professional. He's been in the crypto space for a while. Full disclosure, he is my actual CPA. I am not saying this to you as, hey, you should go and use him because I use him. I'm bringing up his name, and there's a link in the description on this for you to have a resource. If you want to compare notes to what your tax person is doing, or you're trying to do your research and finding a crypto tax person, here's one person that you can use as a, all right, is my tax person talking the way this dude is talking? All right. There's no kickback for me. This is no referral link. I'm just throwing him out there as I know what he does. I know how he's worked for me. I'm not guaranteeing you any of the same results, but at least you have something to compare it to when you do finally pick who you want to deal with your situation. All right. And especially for y'all who are in American jurisdiction, just saying, matter of fact, I got a story or two in here that goes to show that stuff about American jurisdiction. So let's jump into these stories, y'all. And okay, here we are on the first story. So I imagine most of you have no idea who this lady is, but you can see what the caption says. Bitcoin Ordinal's inscription marks first individual poem sold by Sotheby's. You saw what I did with the title, the thumbnail, clickbait. As far as like I put in a price number, it was 11K for this particular Ordinal. I don't know if this is the highest selling Ordinal like ever, but considering the pushback that is going on in the space, especially within the crypto community about ordinals, I think this goes to show like someone finds value in it. Granted, um, this is someone who's not necessarily known in the space. It doesn't mean she isn't doing her homework. She hasn't been in the space for a minute. I'm just saying I have no idea who Anna Maria Cabrello is. I'm sorry, I know I'm messing up on the last name. I know she's a noted literary person within the literary world and poems and stuff. The book, well, she has a book. This is a poem from her book, and so um however it worked out as far as like who she met to be able to connect to the whole Sotheby's thing, it did happen. And I'm gonna throw this out there for the folks who want to push back as far as like, you know, keep Bitcoin to just be about monetary transaction and don't mess with any of the NFT stuff. Considering how things are going within this space and development, and the idea of positive control and like digital sovereignty, right? What have we seen as far as being able to say like, well, Bitcoin, or sorry, the Bitcoin protocol allows for people to do I mean, peer-to-peer digital transaction. I'm gonna say digital versus financial. At the end of the day, whatever the quote content of the digital transaction is, isn't it more important to have this permissionless tool that allows you to transact whatever the digital thing is that you want to do? I'm just throwing that out there as that. I think this goes to show Ordinals is kind of making its way into the mainstream because Sotheby's is second oldest to Christie's as a auction house. So arguably, this is a net positive. Just throwing that out there as a thing that happened. Other thing to note. So jump back one. Other thing to note as like another thing to show the pattern of Ordinals is here to stay at least for a good season or two, and it's making its way into the mainstream part of the world or part of this community space. Now on to this story. So I do not remember exactly what I said. I do not remember how I worded this, but I know last year I said on one of these episodes, because there was a story about how Blurb and OpenSea was competing for the user base and what they were doing, where they were like poaching the creators on each side, right? So like you have it that both are EVM based ecosystems, and Blur came in hitting them with, hey, we're just going to have it where you don't got to pay transaction fees. And then there was a whole back and forth of how they were vamping, just like how God, what's the name of those two exchanges? And I can't remember the name of the exchanges right now, but that was like during the whole early part of C19, they were vamping each other's user base too. So here's the bottom line of this. Of course, this scratches the brain because this is like, well, I wasn't too sure if I saw them making it to 2025. Why? Because the competition was going to increase. And it was a whole thing of the race to the bottom of how do you maintain your revenue model if your competition is coming out saying the thing that you quote use as the revenue model or your main part of your revenue stream, right? We're gonna totally throw that off and then still offer X amount of more features. Now, I don't know what the numbers look like on the back end for how much money Blur has invested in it. I don't even know what the full details are for the camp of who's who, right? But obviously, it's not the same folks per se as OpenSea because OpenSea is connected to Lubin and them. So this thing is happening, and where am I going with this? The NFT market is definitely going to go through a shift. I believe that was foreseeable from last year because we've seen how the regulation stuff was moving. We've seen how the user base was changing, the mentality was changing. And so with that, you have people coming in with quote the same base product but offering a different type of feature function. Granted, some of those things that they were offering were just for their build up ramp as far as acquiring users in and making it that they have their foothold in the market space, right? And that's literally how they're talking about this in this article, where it's like, yeah, Blur came in and they went from where they were like 96% as far as the usage, but then they hit you with this whole number about 100 and something transaction volume or something like that. I don't think they're giving the hard numbers, but at the end of the day, the fact that something like this gets to come out publicly, and apparently the conversations already started in Q4, which means they were probably talking about it before Q2 or 3 last year, if it wasn't already somewhere on the roadmap as an alternative of, hey, if the regulatory space keeps going like this, if we see that the market is shifting this way and we can't maintain a certain percentage of the user base to fit within these particular revenue streams that we have developed out, then we might have to start throwing out the fishing net to see who would be interested in buying this IP. Like it wasn't a far-fetched thought, right, for this particular thing to come out. Now the question is, does this mean the clock has started? Or all right, the clock has started. How long will it take before someone comes up and swoops, or someone starts poaching like X amount of the talent within the company, or just start buying out the software side of it outright? There's another thing too that happened that makes me wonder about this. As far as I think we're going to start seeing the poaching and the selling, or the takeovers, or the buyouts, whatever you want to call it. And I'm gonna get into the story in a couple, so you'll understand why I'm saying indicator. Yes, there's definitely going to be a shift happening this year, at least next year, within the NFT market space, but the bigger space overall. All right. So going to this story, I've been saying for a couple of stories now, like it's interesting to see the things that are coming up within the mining space in particular. A lot of the focus is generally here in the American market, or the American market, as far as focusing on American companies. Here and there, you might get a mention about something related to China or something for Hong Kong. But I can tell you, like, I've yet to see a story that talks about the mining rig that is developed out in Mongolia. And I know for a fact it's there because I know the person who owns that rig. And then there's stuff going on in the different African countries that no one talks about, as well as in the Latin American companies that no one talks about. Everything is usually focused either like Far East or here in the States, right? This article comes up, and basically it's an analysis person named Cantor Fitzgerald, and he's like, yeah, so if these companies can't continue to make the monetary gains in USD price value of what it costs to operate their business at a profit, and we're talking about quarters and year. He's not talking about 5 year. He's not talking about the fact of, hey, you're arguably at the spigot, at the source of the crypto and being produced, and you're doing it in a dollar cost average way that beyond the mining side of it, the like as a person who works a job and then goes and buys the crypto, the dollar cost average in that setup versus being the miner is two different things, y'all. And then the question comes into play of how are you looking at, yes, the maintenance of the machines as well as the power cost of it. This article doesn't cover, and I've seen this story, it was a couple of different stories that popped up around this topic, but the article doesn't cover how the power selling works as far as being a revenue stream for mining companies. I know here in the States, so for example, Texas has their programs. I think Arkansas has their programs. There's a couple other states that have programs for where the mining facilities can sell back the power that they don't use to the grid, to the company, the power companies that own the grid. That's not addressed in this article at all, which then makes me wonder, is it that the dude Fitzgerald did bring up that, like, yes, there are other revenue sources that these mining facilities can have, but it isn't a universal program. So like I don't know, and I probably doubt that like Hong Kong has something like that, or if you look at like Canada, I don't know if Canada has programs like that, or Australia. And so he throws another couple of things out there as far as how he projects or thinks that, well, I forgot the name of the company he named, but the idea that we'll see a culling happen for sure over the next 3-4 years with mining companies. And that's not just a US thing, that's a global thing. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense. How you're reasoning it out, though, I don't necessarily agree with, but just to throw it out, like, yeah, there's going to be a downsizing of mining operations, especially like large scale stuff, which then makes me wonder, would this be the thing of where we see that the mining side gets pushed back to the retail mom and pop level? Because I just did the story, what is that, last week, about Virginia saying, hey, if you're doing a home front kind of mining setup, we're going to make sure that there's a bill that is looking to be pushed into state law to protect people who are interested in getting into crypto mining. Covered that last week's episode. So I don't know. I wonder, could this be the thing to bring back the mining side of crypto into the more regular everyday person realm? Because yes, there's a monetary incentive, but I would argue that the retail mom and pop level everyday folks have more of a appreciation to keeping the Bitcoin mining side as protecting the infrastructure, protecting the network. Because you got to understand, like, as far as these mining companies go, at scale, like the facility side stuff, their thing is all about profit. It's not about, hey, let's protect the network. It's X amount of people or some conglomerate of companies came together and was like, we see that we can make money on this. Let's do what we do. We're going to do the run for like 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. I don't even know who's the longest running mining facility in the States or any of the other countries for that matter. If somebody know that, throw that in the comments. I would appreciate. I am curious about that. But the point being is that, like, the securing the network is like maybe third or fourth or maybe even down to 10 on the list. It's not the 1 and 2 thing, is the point. So we're definitely going to see a number of companies follow into the thing of like, yeah, if we're not making money in terms of the price point value versus the value of securing the network, the value of peer-to-peer transactional permissionless as a system, as a technology, yeah, of course they're gonna go the other way and follow whatever the new thing is, right? That's at least my thought process on it. Oh, I thought the picture for this was pretty dope for this facility, by the way. All right, jumping off to the next one. So here we are on the next one. So Yield Protocol cease operations, urges users to close positions. So I read this article. It's not too long, and as I've been saying for how long, like, there's a thing of who, what, when, where, and why, which used to be like the basis or the base point of news, where it's like who did it, how they do it, why they do it, what are they doing it for, or why. And what you have going on with how the news, not the cycle, but the news presentation works is you have more shorter, condensed stuff. So they throw out a couple of W's, or they might kind of put in other things in place of a W that doesn't necessarily fit that W. Case in point with this story. It basically is saying, hey, come January 31st, which I thought is also funny because that's my birthday. We're ceasing any new, we're ceasing operations, we're closing down, and let me back this up. You need to close out everything that you're doing on our platform by January 31st. After that point, you're going to need to get your stuff off of our network. All right, cool. At least it's being said. Now, my thought on this is, and their excuse is, it's the regulatory environment, and we've noticed a unexpected, or we've noticed a continuous dip in the user traffic that we had at the high point. So back during the Biden bucks, the Uncle Trump money, during the whole C19 phase, everybody had they Fed bucks and they was doing some things, and all of a sudden now we see the delayed effect of what happens when you're not just getting free spigots of money. People ain't playing around with the money the same way. Inflation is doing what it's doing, and then it's the people who. No, let me hold on. Let me jump back on that one. People don't have the same amount of free, quote, unworked for money to just put into things, versus before it was like, well, I got $500. It isn't like it cost me anything to get the 500. Let me throw this in here and see what happened. And then when you don't take the time to like actively see how this protocol works and like compare it to other DeFi related financial mechanisms or crypto related mechanisms, stuff changes, things get upgraded, some hack happened, your thing went, your I don't want to say the word investment, but like, you put down, it's not the price point value went down versus the value of the technology still, quote, works. The point being is, if you're doing the degen stuff, if you're doing the yielding stuff, if you're over there messing with yield protocol or a matter of fact, if you're messing with any of these DeFi platforms, you might want to go through and start like checking on things, because I only seen this story mentioned like maybe 2 times. So it's not necessarily getting the coverage that it should get. And then the other part that gets me with this article is there's no mention of what happens after January 31st. So let's say you don't make your closings on any of the stuff that you're doing come the 31st, which is literally in like 2 days, 2-3 days, right? What happens? Do they just close out the stuff for you, liquidate your position of whatever it is? And where do they put that? Do they keep it in the crypto that you had it in, or do they convert it into a stable coin and then they move it off the exchange platform? That's not mentioned. It's just like, hey, you guys need to actually close out everything come the 31st. There's no information, at least for this story that I caught, on the after. And again, I've seen 1 or 2 stories about it, but did I read the other one? No, I didn't read the other one. But if you know somebody who's doing this, who's messing with your protocol, tell them, oh, go check out the platform, because it might not work out how you think. All right, they only got like 72 hours. Next joint. Lawmakers propose quick legislation in response to the Taylor Swift deepfake. So basically, I didn't even know this until I saw the article. Something happened where somebody was doing some deepfake images of Taylor Swift in compromising positions, and basically now, what do they call it? Non-consensual nudity. So if you post pictures of people in a nude state and as well as in compromising positions in nude state, that's illegal. And so they want to ramp it up to make it like federal level a charge. Now, here's the thing that gets me about this article. It is not addressing digital sovereignty and digital identity in relation to this point of how do I maintain positive control of my image in the cyber world, in the internet. That's not a part of this conversation. It's just, hey, we need to make a law that says if you do this to somebody, you're going to get charged. It's a federal crime. That's all that's being said. There's no deeper or bigger conversation around, well, how does this work in regards to digital identity, digital sovereignty, and addressing the issue of you have, let me step back one. This is the stuff Kanye was talking about last year and the year before when he was having the issue with who was that, TMZ and somebody else. But everybody just like, oh, he ain't on the rocker, blah blah blah. They jumped on the bandwagon for bashing him on stuff. But this is the stuff Kanye was talking about back then, about controlling his image and the whole thing of like, you just can't take a picture of me and then go put it up some which way and do stuff with it. And he wasn't even talking about NCN stuff. He was just talking about in general of like, yo, y'all just can't use my image any which way you want. And I'm gonna say hats off to him for like being loud about it. But this article doesn't address that thing. And the other thing to understand about like the idea of digital sovereignty versus what do they call it? It's digital sovereignty and there's cyber sovereignty. I can't remember the other word right now, but and I've talked about this a couple episodes ago too, as far as how there's a thing within the corporate structure and within the governmental structure that's like, who has what? Is it the user who has the digital sovereignty part, or is it the company that as the users on their platform that has the digital sovereignty? Where does it end? Where does it begin? How does it work when you go quote outside of the landmass of that country? What happens if the person is in another country / jurisdiction and the company is not, that's not their home? They're not that, like, they're not what's the word I'm looking for? They're not they have an office in that company, but that's not their origin of country, right? Where is your digital right within all of that? And this counts to the whole thing of your image and how you, as far as like, how does your privacy stuff work? If I see you at the concert and I take a picture of you, how do you regulate that? How do you stop that? Where now obviously we're taking the more extreme case of this thing of the nudity stuff and the compromising position stuff, but like, at what point do we say like, nah, just don't take no picture of me? Or there's a whole nother idea of stuff that I have about tagging and like the metadata stuff that goes into images and stuff like that. The point being is the regulators, and who was it? It was what's the name of this person? Representative Joe Morello expressed their dismay in the images, and there was another person, and basically they're like, yeah, deep fake should be illegal. And here's the funny part of it. Here's the funny part of it. If you've been on YouTube, you already see the deepfake videos are out there for all types of products and services. There's a joint with Trump. There's a joint with Michael Saylor. There's a joint with the dude from, oh god, it's not XRP. It's the other guy. It's the other company. I can't remember. But the point being is the stuff is already out here. And I find it ironic that the way this, at least based on the pattern of how I've observed things working over the last number of years, is they're going to make the rule, and then you're just going to see it scale and spread beyond just social media platforms. That's the funky part of it. And it's going to be like loopholes and gray areas where, yes, there's quote rules on the books about doing deep fakes, but watch. If not this election cycle and like official commercial level deepfakes, CNN, MSNBC, mainstream news stuff, like regular news channels, not crypto related stuff, not, Reddit or none of that. By 2028, you will see deepfake commercials in the political setup, in the financial setup, as far as commercials and news information stuff. If not within this year, definitely by 2028, which is the next election cycle for us. Anywho, the point being is this is going on, and I just hope folks keep their wits about them, because the scammers are going to be, clever as they are, and things are going to be used to definitely move people's positions on topics. Whether we're talking politics, whether we're talking drugs, whether we're talking the stuff going on the whole is it real, whether we're talking the next thing that we're actually setting up for that is going to be jumping off soon enough, like this stuff, this AI stuff, this deepfake stuff is going to be used to move people's positions on topics. I hope y'all are ready. Next one, Bitcoin Swan Bitcoin debuts mining operations ahead of IPO. So if you're into the whole Bitcoin thing, you're familiar with Swan, which I do believe is Canadian based. Um, and they are basically looking to expand their revenue model. And their head dude, CEO guy, is pro Bitcoin pretty much. Nothing else. Everything else is a shitcoin, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. I haven't listened to him in a while. Um, this arguably, so here's again, this is the interesting thing of you have exchanges that are looking to move into the Bitcoin mining side of it, and I got another story or two of platforms looking to move out of the mining. And so again, I'm really kind of wondering, like, what is this going to mean for the space, like after 2025, if not, leading up to, but definitely like after 2030, like, what is this going to be? Okay. So yeah, this happened, and yeah, it's ahead of the IPO thing, which that's a whole nother thing too about them going into this public phase to get listed and stuff like that. How long is that gonna last? And then are they eventually going to end up pushing into the whole ETF thing? Because and King and Zay said this the other day, like no one's going to be doing one for one crypto. So imagine you're doing the mining, so you're creating the underlying asset, and you're already a financial entity who can offer this financial product of ETFs. Like, I don't know if that's the play, but and I don't know if there's some rule against them doing stuff like that. Because like imagine what's the thing called? Like a precious metal exchange that or a company that sells precious metals, but they also own a mining facility. I mean, can that be a thing? I don't even know exactly, but I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe I might be just totally off on it. There might be some, excuse me, some rule against that. I'm not 100% certain, but honestly, it would make sense to do as a thing. I got the exchange side of the business. I'm also now doing the part that gives us the underlying asset that we can add in another revenue stream that is about to be a mainstream financial product as we move through the rest of this decade. I don't know. Makes sense in my head. We'll see what happens though. But and I don't know if there's some rule against them doing stuff like that. Because like imagine what's the thing called? Like a precious metal exchange that or a company that sells precious metals, but they also own a mining facility. I mean, can that be a thing? I don't even know exactly, but I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe I might be just totally off on it. There might be some, excuse me, some rule against that. I'm not 100% certain, but honestly, it would make sense to do as a thing. I got the exchange side of the business. I'm also now doing the part that gives us the underlying asset that we can add in another revenue stream that is about to be a mainstream financial product as we move through the rest of this decade. I don't know. Makes sense in my head. We'll see what happens though. And I guess congratulations or shout outs to them. Hopefully everything lands the way they needed to. And so seeing this next story here, Florida and Alaska restrict Binance US. The funky part about this is it was mad petty though. It was mad petty. So it basically boiled down to when CZ ended up taking the guilty plea, their state attorney people was like, "Oh, well, we got to protect our people from the Binance US company." Even though on paper and how they function, Binance US is supposed to be separate from Binance International, Binance big company, right? So in my mind, I'm wondering, is it that these two states are aware of something coming down the pike? Because I already said my thought process on, I think that the US government is definitely using Binance International in a funky way. And as far as Binance US goes, I thought they would have been able to like struggle along. I didn't think they were going to make it through this decade, but I don't know. I'm not 100% certain on how to read this situation as far as these two states going, all right, well, we need to protect our citizens. And we're just going to say, hey, we're revoking your ability to operate in our jurisdiction as a state. So, what did the people in your state do who didn't ask you to do that for them? Like, do you get loud with your state elected officials and be like, yo, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, I didn't ask for this. And then, like, and here's the other funky part, right? And I was laughing to myself about this. So if you have your stuff on the platform and the platform can't quote work because it's geo locked, and you got to remember you already KYC to be on the platform, so you can't go and then log in on some other side because you still have to change your PII information in the records, which you can't do because it already says, yo, you're a resident, and unless you use the passport, or unless you had, because if you don't know, passports don't have addresses. They just say that you have citizenship to a particular jurisdiction / country, right? So if you had either a passport or you had multiple residency cards, for example, like let's say you are a U.S. citizen, but you had a residency card for like Turks and Caicos or like Greece or something like that. Like that might have been a workaround for you. But I imagine most of the folks between those two states had neither of those. So if they, and it doesn't even cover if they had like a window to be like, hey, well, you guys in Florida, you got until like, wait, where's it at? Where's it at? Nope. Yeah, at least for what this article covers, that it doesn't. And I've seen this story popped up a couple of times. Um, and so yeah, it doesn't say like, is there a sunset window? Like, do you have 30 days to get your stuff off? Like, how is this going to work? So literally, Florida and Alaska are just making mayhem for their citizens who are involved in the crypto thing. I don't know. In my mind, if I was like a part of it or I was dealing with this, I would look to find out what regulatory agency was pushing this. If it wasn't like the AG of the state who was pushing it, and then like if it's somebody that you can vote for, start like running like telling people about them as a campaign thing. Like, yo, what are y'all doing? That's my thought process though. Y'all don't got to agree with me. Like y'all can run however y'all want to run, for whatever your situation is. I just hope that y'all got a window to be able to get your stuff off, because this, and you know what's funny too? Imagine if other states start doing this. Like they start getting choked out of the US market by the states. That's gonna be funky as hell, right? All right, so next joint. Um the exchange Kraken, the crypto exchange Kraken strengthens its leadership team. So what is this? Journal, what is it? Cryptonomist. Y'all need to fix this. The first line says that Kraken is a Canadian company, which, yeah, I don't know how that worked out. That y'all thought Kraken was a Canadian company, because I even had to Google it myself just to make sure. Because I was like, wait a minute, I swear they're an American company. The first line in this says that it's a Canadian company. They're not. Links for this will be in the description, so y'all can definitely follow through on this when y'all ready. And so getting into this part of, basically they hired two new people, this dude named Gillis Bian Rosa and Marcus Hughes. And the basic idea is one guy's going to be the chief operating officer and dealing with like chief product. Wait, did they write that twice? Oh, chief operating officer and chief product officer. Okay, so that's going to be Bian Rosa, and then Hughes is going to be head of global regulatory strategies. And I called this last year. I said, watch, like we're going to get into 2024, and then we're going to see the company start poaching the talent. Reading this article made me think or revisit the thought of, it's not just acquiring the talent on the C-level side, the C-suite level side. It's getting the people who have the international understanding and connection. And it also makes me wonder if this is going to be Kraken's like second wind in the exchange market, because they basically got these two gentlemen in order to expand their international footprint, which then makes me wonder, based on the past things that we've seen with companies that have been announcing either ceasing services within the American market, as well as companies just shutting down, and then the other companies that have been expanding their footprint in the international market. So primary players was Binance and then XRP. Now Coinbase is jumping on that bandwagon to get outside of the American market. Why? Because the regulatory space arguably is seeming to push out the smaller mom and pop, not a part of the gang folks, even though X amount of the money is coming out of the Wall Street pockets, right? It's coming out of Wall Street daddy pockets. It's the Black Rocks and the Citadels and the JP Morgans and Andreessen Horowitz and 16Z. Like, those are the folks who are backing these crypto related startup companies that have been around for like a year, 2, 5 years, 8 years and stuff like that. But they're still not a part of the gang. And so I think some folks are seeing the writing on the wall going like, all right, bet we need to get out of this. We need to expand our footprint because the revenue model isn't working here like that anymore because the regulatory landscape is changing. And now X amount of the good old boys are being put into position. We need to go someplace else. That's what I read this as. I could be wrong. You could disagree with me. Comments is open. Let's do this live thing and like interact. I appreciate. I should also add, I never say this, but subscribe and share. There we go. Like, subscribe, and share. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, because this got to add up for something. Like, I appreciate the folks who are listening. I appreciate the folks who come back. I appreciate the folks who interact. I appreciate the lurkers in the back. Like, all right. But yeah, so that's what I see with that situation right there. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully it works out. That's the least thing I can say. Hopefully it works out. All right, next joint. Again, mining story. OKEx set to phase out its mining pool and related services. And on this one, it is when was it? Yeah, you got until So come February 26th, there's no more new users being able to get into the mining stuff, which I imagine they're probably going to still block people before then. Everything is going to be about people closing out accounts or moving their stuff over into other parts of the exchange or like totally moving off of the exchange. And so that's where OKEx is going. Now, if I were, I swear, hold on, let me look this up because I was definitely curious. OKEx. Change. Because I thought they were located. Okay, they're in Shellis. Okay, so they're in the Shellis Isles. Okay, bet. So foreign entity, which then brings me to what's going on in their local jurisdiction and how they're seeing. Now, granted, this article does cover a little bit as far as like how at one point they had a little bit more involvement as far as their hash rate power and like how much of the Bitcoin creation and like crypto market they were making up within the mining sector, which it wasn't no double digit number stuff, but they definitely dropped, which probably is in part because they really weren't about the mining stuff to begin with. It was just one of those like, all right, we see an opportunity to kind of get another stream of revenue, and we'll see how it works out. Apparently, since the drop off, they haven't been able to get the activity, the interest, the excitement back from their user base. So this is what happens. Which then also, again, like I said, the thing with Swan, like I wonder if that's what they're going to do. Apparently, this is not how they see their future development going forward. They might find another way into the ETF market. Like it's one thing to downsize your revenue streams because something might not be sustainable or the overhead cost for operating it over a certain period of time then eats into what the profit part of it is. I got that part. I imagine though that they're seeing something else that's like, well, this isn't worked out the way we thought it would. We need to make the shift because we had calculated out the window of how long do we let this run before we either cut it or reduce it. And this is where we are right now. So we'll see. Does this help OKEx stay as a relevant exchange? Because then they'll be able to have the resources or at least the time to then focus on the other parts of what they're doing. I don't know. Time will tell. Like I know a couple of y'all probably out there on OKEx doing what y'all do. Have you seen the exchange change? Like, have you seen the website and stuff change? Like, has it been good? Has it been bad? Has anybody participated in this? I know I haven't. So I'm interested in your feedback, folks. And I'm gonna leave that one there. All right. So this one, Estonian government will allow extradition of hash flare defendants. Basically, it's two people. They got charged officially. What was that? Oh, 18 charges. Okay. The reason why I brought this story up is not necessarily because it's a crypto scam thing, blah blah blah. It's more so what got me is the idea that a number of the regulatory things that have been going on in the space, as far as prosecution side, law enforcement side. Has anyone else noted that the U.S. seems to be the primary like the tip of the spear for going after international related things? Like and this is happening at the federal government level as well as the state level, because the New York AG was going after Binance last year as a state. Okay, I bring this up on the end of just think about the stories that you're aware of, and if you've been watching me for a minute, you know I cover a number of international related stories, like crypto related stories, and the overwhelming trend of it is America will go into other people's jurisdictions and, hey, y'all need to show us this. Hey, you have one of our users on your server or on your platform, and we get to claim blah 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 blah. Again, look at Binance. It is not a C-state company, right? CZ was Canadian, and yet Binance International now has a law enforcement person from the federal government who sits in on daily operation stuff. Like, let that sink in. And there's things that we do on this side of the pond that I wonder, how is it going to look after 2025, after 2030, when the geopolitical situation shifts X amount more, right? And it's just like, other jurisdictions are going to start bolstering their chest a little bit more to claim stuff that, for the most part, most people know as like the American jurisdiction or the American. Oh, that's day lane. Oh, yeah, we don't mess with that because the DC, that's they thing. This situation here makes me wonder that. Now, granted, we have the whole thing about the transportation laws and the Five Eyes and blah blah blah. But again, as things are shifting, is the U.S. going to always get to be the lead primary poking the finger, being the tip of the spear in the law enforcement side of it? And then what is going to happen when a notable political economic power, or better yet, a law enforcement department or agency from a notable economic or political power starts pressing an American company? And I'm not talking about like the stuff going on with like Britain and like Microsoft and stuff like that, and like the whole GDPR thing in the EU. Like, but the idea of, how is it that no one else is going, hey, we need to get them first because they had people from our jurisdiction who got scammed. And plus, they right here in our backyard. You got to wait. When is that shift going to happen? And when that shift happens, is the space going to be ready for it? Like, are the crypto folks going to be ready for it? Because arguably, the jurisdictional friendliness thing is like a quote race to the bottom. But that's just me throwing that random thought out there. This happened. These folks are going to get some heavy ass time. And I brought the story up because I was thinking about the thing of what happens when other law enforcement agencies from more notable nations start pressing America for extradition or American companies for stuff. Just the thought process. All right. Last one. Yeah. So, all right. I think a couple of weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks back, I had covered how South Africa was doing a thing where they wanted to increase the cost, the financial barrier to entry for startup companies to become regulated or licensed crypto companies in their country. And it was like some ridiculous ass number too. And so here you have it, that in this article, link for this will be in the description as usual, they're talking about, oh, we're going to let 50 companies come in. There's no distinction on how many of these companies are actually local African-led companies. There's no distinction in this article on how they might be a company that's like, based out of Nigeria or based out of Lesotho or something like that. There's none of that. It's literally like, oh yeah, we're about to let 50 companies come in. It was literally about 150 companies that applied. X number of companies dropped their proposals. A bunch of companies basically was just like, yeah, we can't afford to operate in this regulatory space anymore, or this market anymore, because of the direction that the regulators are going in, where they're basically pricing out the local people in order to have the foreigners. And the foreigners means it could be folks that are like from northern African countries. More than likely they're from European countries and American countries, because that's a part of this initiative, is to bring in the foreign money. But they're doing it by making a high financial barrier to entry, which I think is messed up. And we'll see how it play out. Like, are the people going to adopt these companies? Are the people going to wholeheartedly engage with these companies? I don't know, but I think it's messed up for how the South African leadership is looking to curtail their local people in favor of outside folks. But this is going to be a part of the game to be played. This is part of the cat and mouse game of, by bringing in the foreigners, is it going to bring stability? Is it going to bring adoption? Or are the people going to be like, nah, we don't want to mess with that. We want to see more local involvement in the establishment and the maturing of the crypto industry here within the South African community, culture, and like awareness and understanding of money. If you've been out that way, you understand where I'm going with that. Other than that, I'm leaving that as the last story. Again, I try to cover these international things because the international stuff, in my mind, be a little bit more interesting than the stuff going on here in the States. Like, outside of us hearing how, somebody going to jail or crypto is bad because Jamie Dimon says, I feel like the more interesting things are happening outside of the US. But that's just me. That is just me. Nonetheless, folks, as I say, this episode, again, is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy. He is a CPA. I'm not telling you have to use him as a CPA. I am just strongly encouraging folks to do their own due diligence and research and compare when talking to these different crypto-focused CPAs. Some folks is going to tell you the nice buzzwords, and they just purchased the software program like 2 weeks ago, versus somebody who's been in the space for like 5+ years now, who could tell you about, colored coins and stuff like that from back in the day. It's only a handful of folks like that, bro. It's only a handful of them. But nonetheless, link for him will be in the description. You don't got to use him. There's no kickback for me. This ain't a referral link. I'm just throwing it out as a resource. So when you're doing your due diligence, you at least have an option of what to compare it to, or how a CPA should talk if they're in this crypto thing. Other than that, that's the sponsor part of it. Other thing to know, as I say, is have a productive over a busy day. It is a Monday. If you can't do that, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. From one human to the next, that's the best thing that I could wish you. And so I just leave it there. And yeah, y'all, it's a Monday. One.